Thank you, Acting Speaker, for this privilege to raise this supplementary question. The Honourable Member for Abau raised a very pertinent question on the floor this morning, and he did, in his second question, raise the question of how and can we add some teeth as through the perspective of law to enforce the non-permission to sell customary land. I'm a very big fan of customary land. And there are two supplementary questions that arise out of these statements. On Sunday, if I may, as a bit of background, on Sunday afternoon, I'm heading to a meeting, and I see people walking around in the streets of Port Moresby with bow and arrows and axes and weapons openly in general public. Papua New Guineans are not feeling safe in Papua New Guinea. And if Papua New Guineans are not feeling safe in Papua New Guinea, then how do we expect foreigners and investors to feel safe in Port Moresby? Customary land is absolutely fundamental, and we must add teeth. And therefore, there are two questions I raise. One, of course, is, does the good minister, and I must commend the minister on this innovative voluntary surrender of customary land to state lease, and then on subdividing and on selling. We will beg to differ in views, but what is critically important and what saddens me is ultimately that property is going to be sold to the hands of third parties that do not have any relationship. And whether or not the business model will work for the landowner is another question. But so the question is this: what are the prospects of criminalizing the sale and or purchase of customary land? Section 132 of the Land Act does prohibit selling of customary land, but does it have consequences to suffer? The buying will stop if only the selling stops. Yes, the people of Motukaita ought to be blamed somewhat. The people of Lahi should be blamed for their contribution to divesting themselves of land, and they ought not to be. Perhaps the awareness has not been done properly. Perhaps our jurisprudence hasn't been given much thought. Question: can the sale of customary land and or the purchase of it be criminalized? There must be criminal responsibility. There are leaders in this house, I am aware, who also acquire land in this city, in the very way we are discussing about this morning. Can we stop this? It should be stopped. How to stop it? There must be criminal responsibility. Can we look into this very clearly? Number two, the Prime Minister made a very important the statement about freeing up land for agricultural development. I fully commend this policy of the government, and I support it entirely. But the only way to do it is and I also commend the Deputy Prime Minister's comments that Incorporated Land Groups Act is a failed thesis of somebody who brought to introduce to this house and to this country, which is ripping this country apart. Question therefore is, can the ILG Act be repealed in due course in the foreseeable future? And could it be replaced by a codification of our clan systems? We are a land of 1,000 tribes. 1,000 tribes that live in clusters of villages. Our property ownership is vested in land, and we hold it through clans. So my question is, perhaps the good minister could also give some assurance to the people of Papua New Guinea whether or not a codification system, as per the NLD recommendations, could be incorporated for the way forward so as to unlock and unleash the economic power and make Papua New Guinea an economic powerhouse in the South Pacific, if not Asia-Pacific region. Thank you, Acting Speaker.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'd like to also commend the good member for Abau, Hiri, for bringing up this very important supplementary question. And I share the same sympathies because I also too come from an electorate that faces a lot of these problems. So it is in my own interest that I ensure that we try to rectify this, especially in our urban areas. And as I pointed out earlier, land, all of us sitting here own land. And land is a sense of everything that we breathe, everything that we aspire to be. So it is a very important question, and we need to fix it. As I explained earlier, the ILG system, we are looking at it under the National Land Development Phase 2. to look at either amending it or abolishing it completely, with a view to look at alternatives so that we can be able to ensure that our people's rights are not taken away by a few unscrupulous individuals. And I would like to assure the good member for Abau that please, as previously discussed, please find a time. We will sit down and with the good member for Abau, the governor for NCDC, Hiri, and Kairuku, also in lay myself, so that we can try to look at working together to harness and see ways forward that we can sort out our land, very many land issues that we face today in Papua New Guinea. And with your background, I'm certain it will be quite handy to have your advice. The Section 132 of the Customary Land Act, as you rightfully pointed out, is by law. You cannot sell customary land. That is law. And as you rightfully pointed out, there is no teeth against prevention of that. I also would like to point out that when someone in a village somewhere sells his land, he doesn't let the lands minister or the lands officers know when he does the transaction. It's a transaction between two parties, and it is nearly impossible for the lands minister or the lands department to find out where the sale transaction is coming from, how it is being done, who signs it, because there is no letters or requirement that is brought before the lands department. That is why it's a very, very gray issue that needs to be rectified under the National Land Development Phase 2, which we are looking at amending at the moment. So let me assure the good member for Hiri, yes, we are working on it. Yes, we are working on, and I agree with him, yes, we are working on ensuring that it is given teeth so that we are able to look at ways to stop this land sale happening. But I should not stop there. It's not just about the sales. It's about making the lands department more accessible, more awareness to our people, making it more accessible so that the ordinary person in a village knows that if I go to this office, I will be handled properly, I will be dealt with properly, and I will be able to have access to rectify my land issues. So concur with all your good comments, and I can assure the good member for Hiri that yes, we have taken it up under the National Land Development Phase 2. The National Land Development Phase 2, it's not just Lands Department. It's the Attorney General's office, it's a planning office, it is all associated departments that are working together to fix this problem regarding our land in PNG, including unharnessing customary land for agricultural purpose, as is the vision of this government. Thank you very much. Thank you, member for you.